I don't know, man. Like the thought of a 25th anything anniversary
I
just
know.
like gives me chills.
I know. Especially when we're considering that the 25th anniversary literally involves us.
Yeah. We have 25 something.
Bro, it wasn't until it hit me that this upcoming fall in this September I can say I've been a broadcaster for 20 freaking years.
Jesus Christ.
That was my reaction too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a long time to do anything.
Literally
To
anything.
live. I mean, to be alive for 25 years, like holy shit.
I mean, to be fair, I'm pretty sure a lot of people were surprised that you and I both made it this far.
Right. Slightly on both ends of 40 at this point, depending on which one of us you ask. One of us hurtling towards it, one of us already,
Fell over that hurdle, yeah.
knocked into it, broken into 100 pieces. But we're not the only old specimens here. In fact, we're going to talk about another specimen that in a few months is going to be enjoying its 25th anniversary. But more on that after we get to the intro music right here on the Fairly KickAss podcast. Podcast. I've been working on that one.
Podcast.
You got to get the in a world like that, dude. Whatever
we gotta figure out and get you an echo machine.
Oh, can we? Can we expense that?
I don't see why not.
Hell yeah.
We don't necessarily have an expense account, but I have a credit card with the name of Ted on it that we could probably work that one.
He would probably approve of that. I feel like that would be a thing that Ted would.
I wasn't gonna tell him.
Oh, well, no. I mean, keep it under wraps. Like he's not going to look at the statement. He's not that kind of dude.
No. We have gotten away with so much stuff because he doesn't bother looking at this statement.
Well, I'll give you 2 dudes. I'll give you 3 dudes that do look at the statement, and that's myself, Zack. That's him, Dan. The third statement looker, Jay, is still not with us. For anyone who has heard any of the recent episodes, you know that Jay is on a bit of an extended leave. It is all good. There is no drama, unfortunately. I wish there was drama between us. Like, that would make for good content,
It would, but no, unfortunately, he's just on extended assignment.
Yeah. Our senior island correspondent, I suppose.
Yes.
We are going to welcome him back here in a few weeks, I think sometime in mid to late August, ?
Well, he'll be back. I don't know if we'll welcome him, but he'll be back.
That's fair. We'll leave it up to the listeners whether he gets welcomed or not. But until then, you have our 2-man here. And we are going, as I mentioned before the intro music, a entity that is enjoying its 25th anniversary coming up here at the end of September 29th, specifically when the first instance of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was initially released. An absolutely iconic video game for those who aren't aware or who haven't played it. It is a game about skateboarding, as you probably guessed, just based on the Tony Hawk name. It really was the game. I don't know if there were any games prior to that around skateboarding. Certainly none nearly as big or as ambitious as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was.
No, I think it was kind of riding that first wave of popularity from, basically the X Games sort of kicking off the action sports wave. So we had early X Games. We had, a lot of people, not a lot of people, but let's say, I hate to kind of, because it's not like skateboarding is new if you were in certain places, but it brought it forward and brought the concept of competitive skateboarding forward to a lot of places and a lot of audiences never realized. And it's been going strong for the better part of, like you said, 25 years. And there's 2 main things. And I only say this because I was talking to someone literally this morning who was extremely confused by the concept of playing a video game about skateboarding. He was like, how do you even do that? I'm like, well, you push forward and the guy starts rolling, and then you find something to jump off of, and you do a flippy or a spinny or a flippy and a spinny.
Those are industry terms, by the way.
Yeah. Oh no, this is very scientific, like official documentation there. Yeah. If you were watching the Paris Olympics at all when they were doing the skateboarding events, those were the official things that the commentators were using. That's a great slidey into a spinny.
Oh, big flippy there. Big flippy. That's going to be massive points. Was actually, in fact, watching the women's street event here literally 4 hours ago.
So was
3
I.
hours ago, whenever it was on. Exquisite.
But not, as I said. So the first thing that was introduced was the concept of competitive skateboarding to a much wider audience, but also, which is relevant to what we're doing here, as I'm sure you're wondering how we're going to connect the dots, because this isn't a video game podcast.
True. Yet.
Would be the music involved in the game and on the soundtracks. And I think it opened up a lot of new ears, a lot of new, and I know how this sounds, a lot of new suburban ears to a lot of this like punk, hip hop, power pop that hit a lot of us at the right time to kind of help develop the tastes in that direction.
Absolutely. And it was, I mean, the franchise itself was rewarded for it, for that music was a large part of the success. We're talking 5 games in we'll call it the official series, which is what we're going to be discussing here today, as well as some fairly popular spin-offs, including Tony Hawk's Underground or Thug, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland or Thaw, Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam, Proving Ground, several others. This is a media juggernaut in the video game world, at least, and the music was no small part of that.
Yeah, it wasn't until we had gone back that I remembered exactly just how much is involved in this series.
Yeah, five games chock full. I think the first game had the smallest number of tracks, and I want to say it had 12 or 13.
Something about that.
And then, on up from there with each game introducing more and more, well over 100 tracks between the 5 games in the series. And we're going to rank them all from top to bottom. Well, we did rank them all. We aren't going to. That has been done. We're going to tell you about at least some of those rankings, the highest highs and the lowest lows that we have on our list. Before we do that, Dan, was there any, I know that there obviously was a fairly standard motif, as you mentioned, of like punk rock, of ska, of hip hop. Were there really any outliers to those 3 genres that you noticed, or did everything, from what you listened to kind of fit pretty neatly into those boxes?
Probably, I would say probably those are relatively large buckets to put everything into, but I don't think there was anything massively different from those 3. I don't know how else, obviously there was stuff that could be more rock than punk, but now we're just splitting hairs on that line, and rap and hip hop. And again, you're in the same vicinity. So I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Am I completely wrong, or did you find everything kind of did fit into those boxes?
No, I'm with you. And that's why this was one of the more interesting and honestly one of the more difficult re-rankings that we've done. Typically, we take like the Billboard year-end Hot 100 list and re-rank that from top to bottom. And as you can imagine, I mean, we're talking about popular music. That is a wide range of varying genres, varying artists, and varying sounds and styles. This was not the case. And that's not at all to be derisive towards the music or to say that everything sounded the same, because it certainly did not. But this was certainly one of the more narrow scoped re-ranks that we've done. So I'm curious. I'm really interested how both of us, what directions we went on the top and the bottom of the list. I don't know that. I know we're going to have some overlap for sure, but
Guaranteed.
I don't know how much. So with that said, let's figure out how much overlap we're going to have, Dan. If you want to kick us off, rapid fire your number 10 through number 6, and then launch into your number 5. Certainly can.
We'll start the top 10 with let's do this with the game off of the soundtrack for number 3, Ozum Lottie, and Cut Chemist Sweet, first single off their debut album, solidified the SoCal genre blender's reputation, as well as setting the scene with horns and beats and some sick bars and everything that made a certain side of 90s rap so infectious, because it wasn't taking itself too seriously to a certain extent. And then at number 9, I've got Guttermouth and I'm Destroying the World. Honestly, is there a better song suited to soundtrack a skating video? Just a fun sound. It's a great backdrop for board slides and pop shove-its. Also, banjo solo.
Can't beat it.
Number 8 takes me all the way. That was off the third game, by the way. Number 8 takes me all the way back to the original game, an iconic sound from the first shot. It's Dead Kennedys and Police Truck. And really, what a better way to say, let's get ready to skate and also fuck the pigs all at the same time. And look, hey, it's no surprise. Skaters, cops, not very well known for being great friends. So
absolutely.
Way to set that tone right off the bat.
I mean, any documentary you've seen, or at least many of them, you will see that interaction. And like you said, it's very typically not positive in that sense.
Correct. Let's move on to number 7 and 1 from the second game. And we go to the High and Mighty featuring Mos Def and Mad Skills. It's B-Boy Document 99. And I'm going to be honest with you, I do not know why this absolute banger of a track was not in a bunch more of my playlists already. Just stupid slick production work from DJ Mighty Mai, ridiculous flow for Mos Def and Mad Skills. Although, I mean, this Mos Def makes this song. He absolutely shines in this one.
Yeah, no surprise. Obviously, his bona fides precede him, but yeah, fantastic track.
Number 6, also back on the second track, and it is Straight Fire from Naughty by Nature and Pin the Tail on the Donkey. It's a bit of 90s gold that may actually get buried somewhat in the popular perception of the group because of, OPP. But it's well worth checking out. Actually, that whole self-titled album is well worth your time to check out. I mean, there is no doubt that this is a 90s hip-hop record, but there's a lot in this that still feels fresh, even after 33 years.
Yeah, it's. I don't think it's the oldest track. It's certainly one of the older tracks on the soundtracks, but yeah, it holds up even today.
Which takes me back to my number 5. It takes us back to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, the second game I owned, because I owned the original at first on PlayStation and then 3 on Xbox, and I had to get back into 2. I had to go retro that, but not only does that, but I come up with an even more diversionary story. So in the group that I play poker with on a semi-regular basis, we usually are further degens and we play prop cards at every session, which is simply just you pick a card, and if your card hits the board, everybody who's playing prop cards owes you a quarter.
Yes.
As long as you see your card. I tell you that to tell you this. Whenever I play prop cards, I always go with the lemme when I make my pick. That's always my card, as long as my one friend isn't sitting there and calls it first. But it's my card, so I always call that, which is what I'm doing at number 5. The track that opens the third installment is Motorhead and Ace of Spades. And what else can I say about one of, if not the greatest metal song of all time? Well, that's perfectly suited for a role like this. As an intense, chugging powerhouse, well suited to be the table setter for an action sports game, or play during an action sports game, or just about any game, really. I don't know what else to add. Just, they made the perfect choice for the opening sequence with Motorhead. And unlike many, many other opening vids, I didn't want to skip right through it every time I loaded the game up. I was happy to take those 90 seconds of Ace of Spades to help me get into the right mindset to play.
Yeah, it was number 14 on my list, so just outside the top 10. Does lose a little bit of shine when you hear Lemmy talk about it a little bit, when he says, quote, "I use gambling metaphors, mostly cards and dice, but when it comes to that sort of thing, I'm more into the slot machines, but you can't really sing about spinning fruit."
No, but
which is fair. You can't.
Which is fair. When this is nothing to do with anything, but it's also a diversionary topic, because this is what I've come up with today. I decided you're getting ADD the podcast. When we get done, remind me to send you a link to a video where a guy talks about both restoring an old slot machine and then tells a bunch of stuff about Lemmy, because it's the same. If it's not the same machine, it's the same style that he used to take on tour with him.
On tour, the man takes a slot.
The man took a slot machine with him on tour, or as they were called it, the fruit machine. So he had a fruit machine in his dressing room wherever he went, so he could, drink his Jack and play the fruit machine.
We're doing it all wrong, dude.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, this song absolutely fits the motif of a good song and the motif of a good Tony Hawk's Pro Skater song. Like, through and through. You can't beat it. Good choice to kick us off. Good choice is, honestly. Yeah, I think everything, a lot of your tracks were right there in my top 15 to 20. There were a few that were closer to the bottom for me, but one of the things that I found, at least with this whole list, is that there aren't a lot of bad songs. Like, it was so well put together that there just aren't a lot of clunkers here.
No, I was gonna talk about that later, because I think the bottom of the list, as opposed to our normal re-ranks, are going to be very easily blown through with a couple of exceptions. Because, I mean, there's no bad song. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't have chosen just an ass song to put on the game. So there really aren't, like, it's not going to be as much fun to tear apart, because there's not a whole ton to tear apart is what I'm going for.
For sure. And at least even the songs that I don't really vibe to, at least most of them do fit the game. They do fit the scene. They fit the vibe.
Right. And that's exactly it. When you can look at it and go, this isn't really my bag, but it's not a terrible song. Like, as a piece of music goes, it's not bad.
Exactly.
And all that to say that I've delayed enough, so it is now time that you have to do your number 5.
Indeed. And before that, I'll hit you with my number 10 and to number 6 real quick.
Oh, yeah, I should remember the format.
Format schmormat. We make the rules here. We make the damn rules. At number 10, as we were talking about tracks that fit the game motif, the vibe, this one really doesn't. It's a great song on its own, but I don't know that it's a great Tony Hawk song. But still, I'd be remiss if I didn't add Labor by Aesop Rock to my top 10, to the very edge of my top 10. It's so dense lyrically that it's hard to really establish a rhythm with it. But again, I couldn't leave it off my list because, it's Aesop Rock. What can you do? Number 9, as you already mentioned so well, B-Boy Document 99, The High and Mighty featuring Mad Skills, and of course, the indomitable Mos Def. It's the song Labor from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, by the way. I got to program my brain to actually mention which game these songs are in so y'all know. At number 8, from the OG Tony Hawk 1, it is Suicidal Tendencies with Psycho Vision, a track that comes at you relentlessly from all angles in the best possible way. Number 7, from Tony Hawk 4, it's Mass Appeal from Gangstar. Just like, very similar to B-Boy Document 99, another smooth beat that you could just lose yourself in. Just a nice song. Just outside of the top 5, at number 6, Rage Against the Machine, Guerrilla Radio, one of the more popular songs on this list. And for good reason, because this song and the entire album fucking slaps. Shout out to the Battle of Los Angeles. Shout out to the whole crew. You know the song, you love the song, and the folks putting together Tony Hawk also loved it, as well as it was good enough for Tony Hawk Part 2.
Same thing with you. I have everything was top 30 or better that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I've worried that my list would skew more towards the earlier games because, just like you, that's kind of my wheelhouse. But I feel like I have a fairly good mixture throughout all 5 games.
Yeah. I will admit I did not think of that when I was rating stuff, so I definitely have a bias to the early games.
Well, for me at least, even though like at the top of my list there is a mix, I have some stats that I'll get to a little bit later that show that my bias is your bias in terms of how I overall ranked everything from one game to the next.
Okay.
But before we get into the nerdy shit, we have to get into the music shit. And like I mentioned, running the gamut between Tony Hawk 1 through 5, we're going to go with my number 5 from number 5. It's just 5s across the board here. And a bit of a surprise for other reasons too, considering both the style, which is electronic, kind of a weird rock-leaning electronic, which you really don't see much of in this list, as we talked about earlier, and also the lyrics, specifically that there are none. It's also a much slower song than many on my list, but there's just something about the rhythm, the groove, just the flow from Brooklyn duo Rat-a-Tat and their track Cream on Chrome that just makes me want to go out and, accomplish something. Maybe that something is putting a replacement grill together, which is actually a thing that I'll be doing in real life today after we finish recording. Or maybe that something is going after the high score in Tony Hawk 5. Either way, this track will help you get there if you're anything like me. It's a little rock, a little funk, and a whole lot of virtual skating fun all packed into one convenient box.
I'm trying to remember what it was that like I have it on the lower part of the middle. I'm trying to remember what it was that maybe knock it down a little bit. And I don't know if it was just I was thrown off by listening to an instrumental as much, because I mean, again, everything is solid here. Beat, groove, it's all there. And like you mentioned, it's all the not necessarily weird, but the down low motivator, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it was, or if it was just I was listening on a series of so much good stuff that comparatively I went, well, let's knock it back a few points.
Yeah, I could see the instrumental part. That's why I said it was kind of surprising to me too. That if I feel like that would detract from, it might be the only instrumental track on this list. I think it is.
I think so.
But for some reason, just in my head, I could just picture myself, playing with this in the background, and it's just like, wow, this weirdly works. I don't know why, but it does. Is your number 4 going to weirdly work, or is it just going to work?
It's going to work. And there's not a whole buildup of it because we already talked about it. If you search for reviews of the song I've got at number 4, you'll rightfully find a lot of commentary about the deeper political and social meanings attached to it, and they're all pointing out important aspects of the song and that meaning. But in the context we're working with today, they tend to underemphasize one important fact. If you want a powerful and strong to get you in the mood to wall ride track, you're not going to find much better than Rage Against the Machine's Guerrilla Radio from 2. One of my favorites from their body of work. It contains some of Zack de la Roche's best rapping over the punchy drums and that hard, funky bass line. And I'm probably taking the easy way out in these rankings, as I've realized I've already highlighted the opening song for the first 3 games. But at the same time, they were all chosen for a reason and all did exactly what they were supposed to do. Set the tone for the action that was about to come. Something this headbanger absolutely does every time. And maybe somewhere else down the line, we can talk about what this is. A lot of other Rage's tracks meant in the grand scheme. That's another show.
Yeah, it's it as I talked about it and just hearing you talk about it, it takes a lot to not discuss the socio-political themes and contents of this song, because there are so many and they're so fantastically put up and down this album, and obviously other Rage albums too. But like you said, time and place, this is a great track, a great choice for, at any point. If this was your number 1, I'd be like, hell yeah, 100% agree.
No, I'm afraid that I'm going to take the easy way out. A lot of it's going to seem like I'm taking the easy way out. But how about your number 4? Is it taking the easy way out? I don't know.
I don't think it is. I think it's another weird one. Honestly, I've got a couple of weird ones here, and this is. I think the other 3 are probably more what you would expect. My number 4 definitely is not. From Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, it's Barbra Streisand, sort of. So here's the deal. There's not actually a Barbra Streisand track on any of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtracks, at least not in the classic sense. Maybe in one of the spin-offs. I don't know for sure. Didn't look that far. But she did lend a snippet of her 1976 vocalization of Gabrielle Fauré's classic Pavane to 1X to the Z. The man has an ear for the classics. And I have an ear for my number 5 song. It is, of course, Exhibit with Paparazzi. A Barbra Streisand sample shouldn't work, just like full stop. Like there doesn't need to be a qualifier to that sentence. It shouldn't work, but it does. It fits perfectly into this song. It fits perfectly into the melody of the track. Exhibit does his thing, of course, waxing less than poetic about those in the rap game, only for the money and the fame, which crosses over well to the world of skateboarding in the sense that very few people are getting rich as skateboarders. And not talking about the virtual skateboarders like you and I, but the actual folks who are going out there, the X Games folks that this game was built off of, that this game idolized, game series, I should say, not just one game. Very few people are Tony Hawk or even remotely at that level. There's one. His name is Tony Hawk. Everyone else, you get into it because you love it, because it's something that you adore. And I feel like that really fits into the theme of the song as well.
You know what? This is another one where have it in the middle, but then immediately added it to a couple different playlists and threw it into like songs. I'm like, how have I missed this one from the entire era that seems to be again underrepresented? Exhibit really doesn't get. He's not remembered. Like it's not like he's. Oh man, I don't want to sound like I'm running the dude down because he's like, you're not the first artist you think of when you're thinking, oh yeah, old school classic.
Yeah, I feel like maybe more people know Exhibit.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to avoid going. I think more people know him for his TV show than his music,
which is a shame because, like, you know him from Pimp My Ride, of course. You
yeah,
know him from being name dropped in 50 Cent's Into Club, where he was
yeah,
rolling the weed up. But he was a great rapper. He was a great hip hop artist. I mean, I say was. He's still with us. I don't know if he's active or not. But yeah, I don't think he really ever got his due. I think he was always in the shadows of, other rappers, which is unfortunate because he's pretty damn talented.
absolutely. And like you said, Paparazzi's a great example of that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, if we had number threes that we were talking about, I figure that yours is going to be a pretty great example of that. That was dumb as hell. I'm sorry. Take it out. Take it out.
Too late now.
Damn it.
But I'll try and reconnect with you because it's not only it's at least an old school classic as well, but also, and I guess it had to happen eventually. I did eventually run out of songs that appeared in the intro videos of the games. So for my number three, though, I'll go back to a time when the idea of a rap metal fusion was a really unique thing and not just that weird interstitial in our collective adolescent years between musical movements that had more than just an odd outlet for teen angst. And sure, Aerosmith and Run DMC literally broke down the wall in the late 80s, but Anthrax and Public Enemy brought down the whole damn building with Bring the Noise. Here's another song that had so much interesting stuff to its history, and even just Chuck D recalling the joint tour they did with Anthrax. But for our purposes, thrash metal finding a perfect partner in the lyricism of Chuck D. I like the man himself said that he didn't take Anthrax's request to cover the track and do a collaboration that seriously until they actually got in a room together and he saw it was possible. One of his songs got that speed thrash treatment. And again, for our purposes, we're talking about music that's designed to get you up, to get you hyped, to make you want to move. And in this case, emulate the movement that you're emulating on screen. Much like the Rage song before, I dare you to listen to this song and not feel your head at least bobbing along, if not all out headbanging.
This was a tough one for me because it was kind of the culmination, I guess, of the track itself, which I honestly don't really like, whether it's, the Public Enemy or the Anthrax, like you said, the thrash treatment being given to it. Like I don't know that maybe I'm not the target audience. I don't know. But combined, like you said, with the history behind this track, with the fact that these collaborations didn't happen, and the two of them came together to make this happen. And Chuck just absolutely destroys this track. I think that is undeniable. I certainly graded it too harshly where I put it on my list, but at the same time, I recognize what a track it is and have no qualms about, having it higher than I did, which I assumed would be the case because it's number 107 for me.
Ooh, boy. Damn. Yeah, okay.
Not in the bottom five, but just outside of the bottom five.
Damn.
But it's a rarity where it's like I have a track that low and you have it that high. I'm like, yeah, I can see that. Sure. That's good.
No, no, it's not like your criticism unwarranted. I get it. It's fine. I mean, I understand it. And I had to go as one of those getting a chance because I also had heard one or the other. And it's been hearing the collaboration that kind of solidified things for me. Like, oh, yeah, no, this all works. And you can hear it in Chuck's verses. Like, yeah, no, he's embracing this and they're embracing him and it works. It just works.
I'll give you that for sure. This was not a throwaway. This wasn't just, let's pull something together and, make some money off of it. This was a passion project for both sides. And I respect the hell out of that.
And that's what I was shocked when they said they went on tour together and you're like, those audiences, well, maybe they do. Maybe those audiences are coexist a lot better than we would think initially. We were bringing our own bias into it, and they're just like, "Fuck it, man, we're here for the music."
Yeah. I mean, maybe they kind of coalesced more than they thought too. Maybe that
Probably.
kind of birthed, or like you said, the Aerosmith Run DMC collab, kind of the same thing, like birthed a new fan of kind of both of those genres at the same time.
Yep.
Very cool, man. Good shit.
Is your number 3 such good shit too?
I think it is. I don't know for sure how it's going to be received, but we're going to throw it out there. I'm just going to jump right into it because I want to shout out the album Infest, the second studio album from one Papa Roach, including more bangers than I remember, specifically Broken Home, of course, Last Resort, their inarguably their most popular song, and my number 3 song off of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 soundtrack, it is Blood Brothers. I would put it at a tie with Guerrilla Radio, at least in my top 10, in terms of pure, I guess I'll call it fuck you aggression. Certainly not as sociopolitically charged as Guerrilla Radio, because what is, but it still is very much a mood as far as the aggression and as far as the punch you in the mouth sort of feel, which can also be very helpful when you're trying to hit those highest of high scores in any of these games. Interestingly, Blood Brothers is one of 2 tracks on albums released the same year as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, specifically in the year 2000. The year 2000. Give you that Conan O'Brien shout out there from Lambamba, I believe. The other one being Millen Collins' No Cigar off of their 2000 album Pennybridge Pioneers, which I say because it is not really, I don't know it's that common for a video game with songs, like actual tracks on their soundtrack, to have tracks that are that recent, that literally came out the same year. But it just goes to show how much care and how much curation went into these playlists. Like, the music wasn't just an afterthought. They were, up until the bell, they were like, let's find the best tracks, let's get these out, let's get this Papa Roach album came out, this is rad, this fits, let's get it in the game, let's get it pushed in. And I think the output of that is exactly what we're talking about here, a full list just of bangers up and down the entire thing. So and Blood Brothers certainly belongs in its list as well.
Absolutely. Top 30 for me as well. It took me a second because there were actually 2 Papa Roach tracks across these 5 games, and one of them was this and one of them was Infest. And so Blood Brothers is just outside the top 25 and Infest is just outside the bottom 10 because it's not as good a song as Blood Brothers at all.
Agreed. No argument there on any of that. Yeah. Yeah, it is, again, the bias of the older games starting to show through on my list. Is that bias going to continue, Dan, as we get into your number 2?
It certainly will.
Excellent.
All the way back to the beginning. Now, when I started to make these rankings, I don't think, at least, I necessarily set out to just put a bunch of my favorite songs at the top, and while that kind of ended up happening with the top 10, there were also very good gaming reasons behind them. I don't know, though, if I can say that about my number 2 song, which sure is really high to justify with, well, I just kind of like it a bunch. But I do defy you to actually listen to Les Claypool's work on Jerry Was a Race Car Driver and not be in awe, resolving that the track is worthy of said high ranking. And I have to agree with something that was said by a Reddit commenter about this song. I would not use Jerry as a race car driver to introduce someone to the band, as it really isn't the easiest piece of music to start out with. It really, it is more of a challenging listen, really. But if you have a basic understanding of Primus, it's a track full of technical wizardry and slammin' funk to get you bouncing. It also felt slightly odd to have it part of the game, but when you actually fire it up and start a run with that bass riff in the background, then it makes all the sense.
I would say iconic. This is one of the best tracks. It's was number 18 for me, but certainly one of the most iconic tracks in the series. It's one that folks that played the game that hear this track, it makes you think of the game. I'd put Guerrilla Radio in that same category. It certainly goes hand in hand with the game itself. And like you said, it's Les Claypool doing the Les Claypool things as perhaps only he could,
Right.
Absolute wizardry, as you said. Maybe, like you said, maybe not the best like song in a vacuum for the games, but it's kind of inseparable now. So
Like,
yeah, to me.
yeah, like you said, until it actually you put it in the context and play with it in the background. All right, now it makes sense. But just if
Exactly.
you were to put just outside, just try to put Primus and a skateboarding video game together, you're like, I don't know.
Right, right. It just has that certain je ne sais quoi, I guess.
There you go, so to speak.
We.
I was going to try to say something back in French to try and segue, but then I realized those 5 years of French that I took were way in the background, and I got nothing. So, what's your number 2 song?
My number 2 song I don't think it has anything to do with French. I think the band is from LA, as are most of these groups are probably from California in some respect, you know, being the haven for punk, for ska, and for hip hop that it was, and still is, you know, to this day. But even though it doesn't really have much to do with France or the French language, my number 2 song is still Many Things. A satirical dissertation on the afterlife? Check. A reverse love song for an ex-girlfriend I was pissed off at? Check as well, according to band guitarist Brett Gurewitz. I'm not going to do it again because I can't say that dude's last name, Gurewitz. Christ almighty. An iconic song in the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater catalog? I think so. And hopefully you do too. It Is You by Bad Religion. This one coming off of the Tony Hawk's 2 soundtrack with its high-octane, fast-paced sound, with also a melody that just kind of puts you into the zone. It's a little bit of a juxtaposition, as are a lot of Bad Religion songs, with the more melodic vocals with some pretty nice harmonies behind them, with that kind of driving guitar and drum line, you know, kind of just on the periphery. It is very much a quintessential Bad Religion song, and it's a quintessential Tony Hawk's Pro Skater song as well.
100% to all of that. I was trying to count to see where I actually had it and have it tied with a bunch of tracks at 13, just on the outside there. Same thing. And again, I didn't intentionally do that, but I was also kind of give it a heads up or a leg up because I mean, it's a Bad Religion song and I'll always stand for Bad Religion. So, but yeah, no, it absolutely deserves that placing there. It absolutely deserves that placing on the game and both our lists.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely one of those more iconic jams.
I was just gonna say, but I think now we've come to the time where we have to talk about some of those not as iconic jams.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
But at the same time, like you mentioned, bad songs, not necessarily like bad down here at the bottom. Not great. Yeah. And as something I'm sure we'll point out multiple times, maybe they just don't feel like they fit, and therefore it kind of pushed them down to the bottom for us.
Right.
So maybe not as entertaining of a bottom 10 as these tend to be.
Yeah, and I tried to go in at least as much as I could, but I mean, you'll hear like the criticisms, as strong as they sound, like they're flimsy at best, you know. We're not talking the bottom of a, you know, year-end Hot 100 when those songs are actual dog shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you wanted to kick us off with your bottom bits, or if you want me to kick off, I can't remember which order we were going. We literally have done this like
we usually do change it up for the bottom, so I finish up. So
okay, yeah.
Then go ahead if you want to do it. Yeah,
I'll dip my toe in then. I will go with my bottom 5 here. Give y'all my 109 through 112 rapid fire, and then end with my last one, which I had as number 113. We may not have aligned with the same number of songs, which is
I don't think so.
Fine,
no, yeah,
because that's how these things go sometimes. You know, we do it live. Fuck it. So at number 109 from Tony Hawk 3, it's Mad Capsule Markets with Pulse. It reminded me of a scene from the fantastic movie Juno. At one point, Elliot Page's character proclaimed to I can't remember the name of the other actor in the scene. It doesn't matter. It's not important. The character was trying to shove Sonic Youth and other bands, and Elliot Page's character had proclaimed, quote, "I bought another Sonic Youth album and it sucks. It's just noise." And I wanted to share that because it's a movie quote for me, which doesn't happen.
Impressive to start with.
Thank you. And also, Pulse fits both criteria. It was just noise and it sucked. Number 110 for me from Tony Hawk 5, it's Family Force 5 with Raised by Wolves. We're talking bad guitar. We're talking bad wolf cliches, including pack, hair stands up on the back of my neck, and Call of the Wild. We hit all the high notes here. And an anti-hook chorus to boot with I Was Raised by Wolves, essentially repeated ad nauseum with some other guttural yells and screams kind of mixed in there. Number 111 rather, Body Rock by, I couldn't figure out exactly who the artist was here. I have it listed as Musca Beats featuring Biz Marquee, so I'm assuming Musca Beats was the producer of this track. And that was all well and good because the production was okay. Biz was less than okay. For once, the lyricist was the problem and not everything around it. To quote one piece of lyrics from this track, Biz spouts, quote, superb like Goldberg, iller than Godzilla. I scared Michael Jackson into writing a thriller. You didn't, and you shouldn't, and just don't. 112 from the OG, from Tony Hawk's 1, perhaps the only misstep on that initial game's soundtrack, is Speed Dealer with Screamer. Not a track that you're going to find on Spotify. I can only find it on YouTube. In fact, I could only find it on YouTube combined with another track called Nothing to Me, which I think they were shoved together because this is so short. It clocks in at 1:07, which is about 1:07 longer than it truly needed to be, because holy shit, this is not a good track. Nothing to Me is marginally better. I had it ranked maybe in like the 80s, but it's still not great. But Screamer, super, super not great. And finally, at the bottom of the barrel at number 113. So as you alluded to, Dan, there's no shortage of rap rock hybrids on this list. You know, as you talked about Aerosmith and Run DMCs, you talked about Anthrax and Public Enemy, you know, being the kind of progenitors, and, you know, up through the late 90s, mid or early to mid 2000s, where that style or that combination of styles was a lot more prevalent. But at least the majority of those seem to have an emphasis on one side or the other. The rap is weak, but at least the rock is good, or vice versa. For my bottom of the barrel track at number 113, it turns out that neither is true. It's one of the worst rap tracks on the list, and simultaneously one of the worst rock tracks on the list. And that combination gets you a throughput all the way to the very bottom of the barrel. From Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, it's Out With the Old by Black Planet featuring Alley Life. This track, to put it mildly, makes POD sound great by comparison. Like, you thought that Raised by Wolves had a shit chorus? Well, yeah, it does. It's terrible. But so does Out With the Old, which pairs Out With the Old, the name of the track, with the lyric in with the new shit to give you your chorus. Again, repeated ad nauseum, which I guess is just a thing that gets done. The lyrics are anchored by the dumbest call and response bullshit. And when I say anchored, I mean in the classic sense, being dragged to a watery grave, exactly where the song belongs. It ends with repeated chants of new, 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 and shit, 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 with the lead getting out of breath towards the very end of the track. And considering how exhausting it is to even listen to this landfill of a song, I'd venture to guess he's not the only one out of breath right now.
You found one. You bet you were better than I. And what's weird enough is that of everything else of your bottom list is pretty much around the bottom, like quarter. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I was on that day, because Black Planet music is sort of in the middle, the back middle, but still the middle.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, I'm going in on it as much as I can, but like in a vacuum, this isn't like a terrible song.
Right.
You know, we have a reputation to uphold here. We got to do the thing, but yeah, it's probably not as bad as I made it out to be.
You know,
I don't think it's gonna win any awards, but
no. But you know what we say around here? You got to accentuate the negatives.
Well, we've gotten past 100 episodes and still going strong-ish.
Ish. Yep.
Well, go ahead and give me your bottom of the barrel, man. I'm curious to see where we overlap. Or you just told me where we overlap, so this is going to be brand new territory.
A little bit, most of it. I'm also interested. I have more songs listed on my list, despite the fact that I didn't listen to anything. I didn't get back to anything that wasn't on Spotify, which was a handful of songs. But I found stuff that wasn't on the list we initially put together, so God only knows.
Oh, nice.
But because it is my thing, I wrote things for a bottom 10 instead of just 5, because, I mean, it's just me. So we'll start all the way down at 105 with a kind of generic ska punk track from 5. It's The Sheds and Bad Things Are Bad. Again, it's not bad. It's just nothing that really stands out here. At 106 is not a band that I would expect to be putting down at 106, but it's the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Fight Like a Brave from 3. And while there is a lot of good to this song, something about it just doesn't feel like it fits in on the soundtrack at all.
Yeah.
Number 107 brings us to Hot Water Music and Freightliner. I guess this is one of the band's most popular songs, but to me, it sounds like a ton of other post-hardcore songs that I've heard. Like, a lot of them. Number 108. Well, let's be honest, it doesn't belong here. After re-listening to Bully and Milkman, I honestly have no idea why I rated it this low, and it shouldn't be down here. But you know what? We are working on a time crunch, so just make something up, then go listen and prove me and yourself wrong. Sure, it's something I could have fixed, but no.
Nah, like you said, we do it live here.
We do it live. And at number 109, it's 100 Visions and Our Ritual off of 5. And it's honestly not a bad indie rock song, but something that definitely doesn't, again, seem to fit the vibe of any of the games here, which is probably the biggest sin that you could have on this list, is just not fitting in here. That's how you get down here.
It's a curve we have to grade on. I mean, it's part of the deal. It's the game soundtrack. If it doesn't belong on the game, it doesn't matter if it's the best song in the world. Like Adele will be the last song on this list.
Right. She's the last person that would fit here. And so we move to the bottom 5, where I explain I honestly kind of hate this list as a concept, because I don't think I really listened to much of anything that you would consider bad. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, doing our year-end Hot 100 re-rankings, I have no problem identifying genuinely bad songs that become popular for one reason or another, and there's always plenty there. But here, that's not really the case, because all of these tracks were selected for a reason, and they wouldn't have just picked a bunch of crap. So I won't have an entertaining bottom of the list this time around, and I'm sorry. But at 110, it's House of Pain, and I'm a swing it. Sure, it does have a beat that, gets repetitive after a little while. But man, Everlast is on point. I mean, it's not the best work that Danny Boy ever did, but Everlast is on point. And I don't know. Maybe it's here just because it's a mid House of Pain track.
No, I was with you. It's 108 for me. So just that was outside, the track right before my bottom 5. So that was number 6.
Number 11 brings us the song off of the 4th edition, and it's Rocket from the Crypt and Savoir Faire. I mean, it's fine probably. But outside of the phrase Savoir Faire, a lot for less than a 2-minute song, there is literally not much here. But because it's short, it's best suited for a quick playthrough, so it has that going for it. I guess is nice.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, is in my bottom 15. So, yeah, we're aligning pretty well so far.
So far, so good. Number 112 goes back to the original, and it's Committed from Unsane. I mean, look, outside of their name, I honestly can't find much that I enjoy about this band. I mean, they themselves are called noise rock, and that's all I hear. Noise. It's just not my bag, baby.
Yeah. Again, bottom 20. Yeah, there's a curveball in here, and I'm just waiting for it. But so far, we're
I don't know. We'll see. Number 113. This is ones that I finally had enough to say. It is from the 5th game. It is called Burial, and it is from Yogi and Skrillex. And I swear that I heard this song before I remembered I heard this song, so I'm pretty sure it's a meme sample with just enough to remind us that the 5th game was, in fact, in 2015. And I couldn't honestly remember if we were past the peak of dubstep by then. So I don't know if this would have been a trend chase, and that's why it was there, or just another example of Skrillex trying to stay relevant by being the only one making those ear-violating screeches. Either way, those are the last sounds that I want to hear when I load up in a video game to enjoy myself.
This one I had ranked quite a bit higher, is at number 64, but only because of Pusha T being on the track. And Pusha can do no wrong in my eyes, because he's one of the best rappers of all time fighting.
Yeah, I mean,
everything else was dog ass, but the Pusha T part was solid.
That's fair. And it brings us to the ultimate number 114. So you're a little bit off. There's a couple of songs here and there. And I know I have said this over and over again, especially down here, but when putting this list together, I kept thinking of what would make the most sense to go with the games. And for some reason, the sound of Joy Division wannabe synth pop is not it. Now, I do enjoy some of the genre. I like She Wants Revenge, but I would never try to mix Tear You Apart with my action gaming. For that, and the fact that it's also a rather mid, buzzy synth pop song, the worst track to appear on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games is Cold Cave's A Little Death to Laugh. I was going to say, you keep staring at me like you expect me to say something else. I'm like, I got nothing else for you there, bud.
No, it's like, it's one of those where, just to peel back the curtain, like, we have video up when we do these. Obviously, y'all don't see the video, but we see each other. And at least for me, I always kind of look for like visual cues. Like, are they done talking yet? Are they still going through their thing? Because the last thing you want to do is cut someone off when they've got, a good monologue or a good bit that they want to say. So, I'm basically sitting here sizing Dan up, and Dan's just like no-selling me the whole time.
I'm just stared at you, you're staring at me, and I was like, yeah.
I don't know. This one was a really weird one for me, because at a certain point, I had this one like in my bottom 20, and then moved it up, and I don't know what caused me to move it up. I really honestly don't. I remember when it was last night. It was like 1 a.m. I was kind of finalizing my order. I still had some writing to do, but I was finalizing the ordering of my list. And I saw that down there and listened to it again and thought, this is too low. Why is this so low? And that was my justification, was it was too low. And that's as far as my 1 a.m. brain could get. So your guess is as good as mine.
Fair. I mean, I did the same thing too. Said, this is too low. Why don't I left it here? I should pick it up. Now I don't have time to pick it up. Fuck it.
Well, that is a weirdly good segue to go back to the top of the list, at least for me. But yeah, I can, if you want me to jump in with my number one here.
By all means, go right ahead, because we also might be able to knock this one out pretty quick.
Because I believe it's going to be the same song.
There's a good chance.
I believe there's a lot of picking it up involved in the song, which is why that was such a perfect segue. It was going to be the number one for me from the very beginning. Any fan of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series knows this song. And most fans of the series love this song. It is the song that is synonymous with the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series from the original game, from Tony Hawk's 1. And really, the two are inseparable. They truly are. No matter if you started with the 5th game in the series, or if you're an OG like Dan and I are, or anywhere in between, you remember the feeling of hitting the highest jumps, the coolest tricks, and the longest grinds, humanly and not humanly possible, because I think maybe you could play with an alien at some point as well in one of the games. Not to say that aliens aren't real. Again, that's a different podcast altogether. We'll get there, guys. We'll get there.
No, we won't.
But in short, this game truly makes you feel like Superman. Of course, it was going to be Goldfinger. There was really no other choice. From their 1997 album Hang-Ups, the ska banger Superman enjoyed a little exposure from its usage in the movies, the blockbuster movies, Meet the Deedles and Kingpin. If any remembers those films, I'm very sorry. But it was then tapped to be on the Tony Hawk 1 soundtrack, and the rest, of course, was history. Go ahead and skank. Skank to your heart's content. I'm not here to tell you not to. As long as you combo those skank moves into a 360 shove it rewind to varial heel flip judo to dark slide down the rail, guaranteeing you high scores for days.
And if you're not going to then immediately get right back on, find the first wall you can get and Benihana off it, then I don't know what you're doing with your life.
I don't know how old I was when I realized that Benihana was a restaurant and not just a skateboard.
Right, not just a move.
Older than I care to admit.
Right. I think you said everything that needs to be said. I can't. I mean, I'm in 100% agreement. Of course, that's my top song too. You don't. The phrase "iconic sound" gets tossed around a bunch, but when you're looking for something to attach to these games, and the memories of these games, it's this song. Like that's it. That is what this song evokes, and that is how this song plays out in everyone's head. Period. At least if they've played the game.
Yeah, even to the point where the documentary for the video game series is called "Pretending I'm a Superman," a lyric directly from the song. Like
That's right.
They go hand in hand. It makes you wonder if not for Superman being that iconic song, maybe it's not fair to say would the series have been as popular as it was, because there's still so much more great to it, even above and beyond the music. But it certainly didn't hurt.
I agreed, but I think we would look to just another. I hate to say it like to blow it off, but it was just the thing that connected. But I think there'd be another song that you could probably connect to that would kind of become the voice of the series. But this is the best one to do so. This really is.
Yeah, for sure. It's a game that well done from a sport that is literally just art. It's just moving art. It was going to be, not to be denied. Like it was, every aspect of it is awesome.
Yep. And that's why going into this, I knew there was no way around not picking it as number one. Because it's one of those where like, I'm sure someone else is going to do this as number one, but I have to. I just have to.
Of course. Yeah. There was no other choice. I think this was an interesting endeavor, and I'd be curious to see, and curious listeners, how you feel about this album as we, kind of talk about music in a thing, whether it's a video game soundtrack, TV show, movie, what have you. We might do more of these WeRank episodes in the future. Let us know what you think. If you liked it, if you have any suggestions of other things that you would like to hear, other, things that have a large number and perhaps variety of different songs attached to it. Yeah, let's see if we, end up pulling this lever again.
I could see there's some stuff. Hopefully they're not going to be like 120 songs worth of stuff, but I could definitely see there's stuff we could dive into.
For sure. Yeah. I've got, and we will talk offline because I don't want to pull back the curtains just yet, but there are certainly some things that I have kicking around in my head that might be suitable, and truthfully might be more than 120 songs in some cases.
Ooh, yay. Ooh, no.
Yeah. we may have to play with the format a little bit there.
Well, before we go backwards into the planning meeting room, really quickly tell everybody the best ways to have them tell us what we should be doing, and also what they think of our list.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are a number of different ways, and conveniently, it's all the same thing. It's all at Fairly KickAss. Whether you're trying to get us on Instagram, on Threads, on TikTok, or on Twitter, it is going to be at Fairly KickAss across the board. You will find us there in all forms. Email is also fairlykickass at gmail.com. Eventually, we'll convert that to our website, fairlykickass.com. Until we get the motivation to actually do that, fairlykickass.com is going to just serve as our website for all of the website things. My brain just completely shut down in the middle of those plugs. Luckily, websites don't shut down as long as you pay the bills, which we somehow have been able to do for 4 years now. And thanks to that, you can check out our kind of behind the scenes posts about a lot of these episodes. You can check out our ride along playlist, which in this case will have all of the songs from Dan's and mine lists combined, since like we mentioned, there were some outliers between the two, probably sorted by game from 1 to 5 on down the list. And then for this podcast that you're listening to right now, I don't know where you're listening to it, what service or app you're using. And that's honestly awesome, because that means that you can find us on any of them, any of the lists, any of the applications, any of the services, websites, wherever you go to get your podcast, you can find the Fairly Kick-Ass podcast there. Just search for Fairly Kick-Ass and you will inevitably get to us. Check out all of our past episodes. We have more on Spotify because that's just where we started at. So if you want our true full back catalog, go ahead and check it out on Spotify. Otherwise, we'll be pulling in more from that back catalog periodically as we go along. So yeah, check us out and let us know what you think. Do you have any closing words for the people?
I was going to give them, but then I realized that just like your brain froze up, so did mine. Never thought that we'd be here talking about playing a game where you quite often gave your character CTE and then displaying our own outside of the digital world.
Yeah, we this is why Jay is missed, because Jay is the glue that holds this thing together.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've learned.
If you need any example, there it is, but there. So I guess in that case, well, thank you very much. On your own. Good night.